Before we kick off, registrations are open for our 24-hour leadership challenge on December 13 and 14. This is no retreat. It's a test of endurance, resilience, and mindset. You'll move, learn, lead, and push beyond your limits. All the details are in the show notes or at highpl.com.au. Let's get into the episode. Welcome to the Leader More podcast. Our motive is to pass on what we've found helpful over the years through leading teams, running operations, and dealing with life's challenges. We hope you enjoy. Welcome, Richard. Appreciate your time, mate.
Thanks for having me.
So, mate, health, safety, environment and quality manager for a site services company and work up in the Pilbara.
Yep.
We were talking about those four areas and probably the toughest areas you could pick to get some compliance on. Why would you want to do this?
Oh, look, like anything else, because there was a need to at the time. To be fair to the HSEQ community, usually the E and Q kind of gets dropped off the end. And even not where I am, it's mostly H&S. I'm not sure that we don't have a lot of serious professionals in the HSEC community who are really bugbearing about quality.
Yeah, you probably don't get time to worry about it. Is that part of it?
It falls out the back end of it, mate. Absolutely. No, why is really interesting because it was never intentional. I landed up in the mines as a village manager, just running the operation itself as an operative. And I fell into health and safety because it was the part of the job that I was engaging with the most. But also it was the part of the job where I could see really, really easy opportunity for my peers in the village management space to score quick wins, make life easy for themselves, improve the operation. And they weren't getting a lot of help or training because a lot of the HSE advisors running around didn't really know how to make the people around them better at what it was they wanted them to do. So I slipped into the health and safety advisory role as just, I can do it all right for myself, but now I've got an opportunity to try and help some of the other leaders in the area do it a little bit better for themselves and benefit from some of the lessons I learned going through as a village manager with a health and safety focus and getting all those fantastic outcomes that I was getting. And like anything else, you do it for a while and you're a bit successful and somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, would you like to manage a team of safety professionals? And go, yeah, absolutely. And before you know, you're in an operation like I am, running health and safety for a 2,500 man village.
You made a rod for your own back, mate. You've done too well.
That's reward for work is more work, mate.
That's correct. So talk to me about the setup. So 2,500 people on site. Yeah.
So we're out at Roy Hill at the moment, and it is maxes out at 2,500 man camp during shuts. Usually it's sitting around 1,800. I've got a small team of 2 safety advisors to look after the village services piece. We've got about 300 staff total running around across the panels. Usually we've got between 170 and 200 of our staff running around doing all the village area services, mass transportation, running aerodrome, retail, accommodation, administration, mine site cleaning, grounds. Essentially, it's like imagine a small town and you run around as the mayor of it.
Well, I'm learning stuff already. Like I was thinking services, it might be some, like you said, cleaning services and managing that sort of stuff and, and different things. But so transportation.
Yeah.
Yeah. The aerodrome.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So a massive thing and 300 people.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So health and safety wise, and it's always a little catcher. People come up to you, go, "How we want to do this? Is it safe?" And you go, "Well, it's been a hot second since I looked at my mass transportation stuff, so you're going to need to give me some time to do some reading. Do we have any subject matter experts around who can help us out as a start?" And the biggest strength trying to run safety in an environment that large is building capacity and the subject matter experts you're supposed to have. So the biggest part of my role at the moment is working with the supervisors and the operations managers we have and getting them into a space where they can do essentially the whole scope of their jobs well. And then I fill in for those areas where you desperately need a subject matter expert in safety specifically.
Yeah.
And that's the intent, to get myself to a place where that's the function they need me for. I can spend most of my time thinking about what we do better rather than fixing up kind of what went wrong this week.
So developing the team is the priority, yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And what have you found? What's worked well? And I know that's probably going to be different depending upon the person, but what's your formula? And I imagine this formula too is something that you've figured out for yourself along the way.
Yeah, look, it's a lot of it is how I learned and what I really, really wish that I had the opportunity to have introduced to me. So when I started out as village manager, the way I found out that something was a part of my role is I'd get an angry email from somebody telling me it wasn't done.
There's a trigger, yeah.
And then be like, all right, so I need to figure out if I actually have to do that or this person's having a bad day. The safety place is absolutely no different. So with a lot of our leaders, they've got what I like to call Labrador safety, which is enormous amounts of enthusiasm. But they kind of don't know what to do with the car once they've caught it, and all that energy is going all sorts of different areas, and some of it's working for them, some of it's not. And it is connecting the long-term lines. So everybody sort of pays a bit more attention when they can figure out, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but people kind of run on what's in this for me. And as a leader, what I found with safety is what's in it for you is time. So the initial short-term pain of building up a good safety culture, it sucks. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of effort. But once you've got that running, it gains a bit of inertia. You've got, as a leader, a hell of a lot more time. So that's the pitch to when I come and I say, if you can make safety your priority, if you can get this stuff right, and if you can convince your team that you're getting it right, and you can have the sort of team that believes you're putting them first, down the line, you're going to find yourself in a really, really comfortable space with a really well-running operation with loads of time on your hands to do the sorts of programs and initiatives and outreach and all that stuff that puts feathers in your cap. Wins you industry awards, gets you your promotion, whatever the goal it is you've got as a leader that you want to do, you can usually get there in part through health and safety. And if I can make that pitch effectively for the leaders, I can get them on board to at least wanting to hear what I've got to say. Yeah. And then your trick is just making sure that the sell works, right? Like if I've promised all this, it has to happen.
So influencing a lot, yeah. And that scenario for a position like yours where they may not directly report through to you, it's all you've got, right? Is that influencing aspect?
Ultimately, yeah. But so a little bit of my background playing around in the psychology spaces, you read a bit, they talk about the types of power. And it's a good thing to sort of look at because we think about hierarchical power in business as being kind of the guy. You're going to do what I tell you because that you're literally paid to. You've signed a contract saying, I'm going to give you money and you're going to do stuff that's reasonable and legal.
I don't want to get sacked. Yeah.
Yep. You don't want to get fired. Absolutely. When you look at things like informational power, relational power, you go, all right, I'm going to get you to a place where you're going to do what I say is a really good idea because I've demonstrated to you a bunch of times that when you do that, it goes really well for you. Or you're going to go along with ideas that I've got or plans that I've got for you because you found out that when you do that, we wound up both looking good. And it's fantastic, like a client relationship. So what I do with the client is we'll have an incident, and that's not a great thing. And their boss is going to be breathing down their neck going, what the hell is going on here? So what I'll do for them is I'll do an investigation report. And I'll do up an investigation report and I'll sit in a room with them. I'll take half an hour of their time and I'll get their buy-in. And that's really good for me, but it's really good for them because their game is going to go on this investigation report. And this thing is going to look fantastic because that's a skill set I've got. And then they've got this wicked document that they're going to put up to their bosses going, look what we got out of our contractor. Look at the level that they've gone into because our effective management of the contractor. Look at how much good of a job we're doing. We've got these amazing controls. We've got this big program. We've turned a loss into a win. So when I say, here's how we're going to do this investigation, guys, or here's what I need, or here's how it's going to go, the client is going to go, well, let's hear him out because,
he's got a track record of
it's worked well before. So a lot of it is putting runs on the board.
Yeah.
And developing that informational power. You're going to do what I ask because I've proven to you I know what I'm talking about. I've proven to you that I've got your best interests in mind. And you've just developed a pattern between working with me instead of against me and great things happening to you.
Yeah. That initial, before you can get to that step, building that relationship from a person to a person, what is that like? How do you do that?
Well, I jumped into this role in January. And I was introduced to the client as a quote-unquote tough client, which means nothing because everybody thinks their client's a tough client.
Boss,
from my bosses.
Yeah.
And
okay.
from the recruiter, actually.
Oh, great.
So I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it turns out the client we had were honestly teddy bears compared to some of the people that I've worked with in the past. What it means at the start is setting healthy boundaries. They've got an expectation what they think the relationship's going to be. And a lot of the times with a client in particular, it's a master-servant style relationship. And it is, I'm going to butt heads with you a bit. I'm going to set some boundaries. I'm going to tell you no in places that's sensible to tell you no. And you're going to get it into your head that if you come to me with stuff, you kind of have to have your ducks in a row. And I want to build up a bit of friction. It's a necessary part of the process because you can't build a healthy relationship with a power imbalance just by being submissive through the whole thing.
Yeah.
So build the friction, set it up that we can do this the harder way, like that potentiality is there, and then really intentionally take a step back. So what I did with the client and with our own people going in is I went and I gave them the sell. Same as I've just done for you. Like, this is how we can get there. This is what I've done in the past. This is what works. I'm going to get you to trust me just once. And you can trust me just once and let me demonstrate. Then every decision you make in our relationship can be based on demonstrated evidence, but we're not going to get there unless you give it one go. And fortunately or unfortunately, we had a couple of opportunities early on in the start of the year. We had some nasty incidents. So you come to safety whether you want them or not. And it gives me an opportunity to go ahead and say, this is what I can do with this sort of stuff. This is what I can do for you. For our people, I said, I can go ahead and take this. It looks really scary. You're a contractor. Something's gone bad. Everybody's breathing down your neck. I'm going to turn this into a story about how safety mature we are and how positive this business is and kind of a turning of things around. I'm going to create a narrative that's going to sing really well for us.
Yes.
And for the client, I'm going to give you a reason to go back and believe that we've got some maturity in the business, and also a way to go back to your bosses and go, you've generated that maturity in the business through your management. I'm going to give you the wins because you deserve to have the wins. Able to demonstrate it, have fantastic working relationships with the overwhelming majority of our client safety team, their operations team, our own internal team. And we've built the safety department into a spot where they're not always super happy with the stuff that we're saying because safety often gives you work to do. But at least it's understood that it comes from a really good place. And it's sort of like your parents telling you to do something, like, it's for your own good. And that's been demonstrated.
There's some transparency about that, right?
Has to be.
Yeah. And that from the start, right? Like you're laying that out, like you said. Pushback from people above you, is that something that you've had to lay out to them and give them that sell as well?
It is. The interview question that I asked any safety advisor coming into my team is, can you tell me a time where you knew or you were right about something and you had to fight for it against people above you? And that's the absolute test. And look, the way I work is I try to play with political capital as much as possible. I try to get money in the bank. And the reason why we build up this relationship is because every now and then I am going to have to go ahead and say, I have to take a bit of a risk, and I need to go tell the people that are deciding whether or not I get promoted or I get my pay rise next year that they're absolutely in the wrong and they've got to pull their heads in.
Yeah.
And am I in a place where I can do that, and is it actually going to get a good outcome for people? Or am I just got my nose bent out of shape because I didn't get exactly what I wanted exactly when I wanted? Sometimes that's the case. You go back, you have a thing, you go, we don't need to do this fight. But one of the big ones I've had in the health and safety space has been around psychosocial incidents when we're talking about sexual assault and
okay. So you deal with stuff at that level. Okay.
Absolutely. And then you go ahead and go, right now, did that operations manager sweep that under the rug because they didn't really know what they were supposed to do? Or did they sweep it under the rug because they knew exactly the harm they were causing? They didn't want to deal with the embarrassment or the fallout. And you go, this is going to be a tough one. And I've gone into bat for those. And you go in armed with your legislation. You don't come from this is Richard's opinion.
No.
You go, this is me doing the job that you've paid me to do. This is what the law says about this. This is what we have to do. But more importantly, this is what would happen if this got out, or the client found out about it, or the regulator found out about it. And I'm trying to save you from a nastier outcome. Back when I used to run Qantas Club Lounges, I used to be a duty manager there for a while back when I was a kid.
Yeah, okay.
So a fantastic game I used to play with my bartender staff back when I was running bartender staff was getting them to get passengers to thank them for being cut off, which is obviously a high tense, difficult moment for customer service. But you go in and go, well, look, it's in your best interest that you get cut off because you want to catch your plane. You're here for a reason. You're trying to do a thing. I'm here looking out for you. This is me being the best friend that I can be to you, the stranger that I've met today. And if you can get them on board believing that you got their best interests at heart and this is all coming from a place of care, they'll turn around and say, well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And you can get that same thing with a general manager or a mine manager or anyone else in a senior positions of business to go ahead and say, sure, I don't like being told no. I don't like being told I'm wrong, but this guy has convinced me that he's doing it from a position of trying to keep my ass out of the fire and me out of jail. And ultimately, that's what safety is. We're just trying to keep the people we work around out of prison.
Psychology degree is coming in handy.
Mate,
right?
it's I got it back when I was a kidlet, and I didn't think I'd do too much with it.
Yeah.
And the second I got into leadership roles, I was there going, well, there's use for this everywhere.
You bet, yeah.
And it's never stopped being pretty handy for me. It is one of the subjects that I keep up with the research in simply because it's been paying me dividends. And then around 2020, when a lot of the mining companies started talking really seriously about psychosocial,
Yes.
that's when everyone was looking for who do we have in safety who knows a bit about psychology. And I had very accidentally positioned myself at the forefront of a burgeoning field.
Pick me, yes.
Exactly.
What about human behaviors coming out of your degree and then jumping into leadership roles? Like, is there anything that sort of surprised you from a human behavior point of view?
Oh, look, you ask any first-year psychology student and they're going to say something silly like there's 3 types of people, or I've got you all figured out, or everything comes from childhood trauma. One of the best pieces of advice I was given my first-year psychology from a lecturer is don't use any of the stuff you learn here on your friends, or pretty soon you won't have any, which has always been pretty handy. One of the things that surprised me genuinely is how universal people are. Ultimately, we're working in a field where we got people from all over the world, all sorts of backgrounds. I had a situation during COVID where my housekeepers were all super educated professionals. Like several had started their own business, a handful had masters, and it just what COVID had done to it. I'm there going, I'm running this team. I'm the least educated person here. But everybody runs on a lot of the same drivers. Everybody has the same core goals. And if you look at modern psychological leadership advice, and then you look at Chinese leadership classics from 5,000 years ago, it's pretty much copy and paste. People have been people, and people who've been good at leading people have been using the same concepts for 7,000 years.
People have stayed the same, right?
We're pretty much the same. We want legitimacy and genuineness. We want trust. We obviously want to be able to afford to look after our families at the end of the day, and we want to stay safe.
Yeah.
What we sort of suffer a lot in business right now is just, particularly from the younger generation, they've kind of clocked on to the fact that in a lot of ways the companies don't serve them that well. You know, the big trend relatively recently of HR is not your friend. They're there to protect the company, not you.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people going into the workplace with a lot of skepticism. So I think the thing that surprised me is how hard you have to work as a leader to overcome some of that cynicism and prove that you're not just one of the people talking the talk, because everybody is.
And a relevant point that's come up a couple of times on different podcasts, right? It's just around HR's leaning towards more what, the strategy is for the business than necessarily the care for the person, right? And it's sort of a hard situation because, a business should use everything at their disposal to do that. They pay people, employ people. But in saying that, too, individuals go to people in these positions because they have some personal things that need to be spoken about. It's hard sometimes. Building up that trust, what works for you?
So I came across a little bit of I will apologize because I'm citing a theory without giving it the credit that it's due. So, do the thing where you look that up for me.
Okay.
But
we're a bit loose here, mate.
Yeah.
We don't have, what are they called? Citations or whatever they are.
The thing will come up. No, look, the trust piece for me, and I've found this to be as true as it can be, is literally just the intersection of competency, integrity, and benevolence. If I can prove to a person that works for me that I'm competent to do the job, that I'm most of the time going to do or try to do the things I say, and that when push comes to shove, I'm going to put their interests over operational interests. I'm literally going to do the safety over operations. I can get them to believe that those 3 things are true. And don't believe. They don't actually have to be true.
Yeah. Prove it through your actions.
Easiest way to get them to believe it is to demonstrate it. If I can demonstrate and get them to believe it's true, they're going to trust me. So every now and then, if I have to say, look, you just need to do something, then they're going to believe me. Or if I say, we're going to try something different, we're going to change the workflow, introduce a new piece of equipment, new process, I don't need to fight as hard on every single change curve every single time. I've got a crew that trusts me. And where I found that really, really important is I had a moment with one of my teams a few years ago, and every time we get new starters, I do the same sort of spiel. And it sort of is like, we want you to report your incidents early. If there's anything that doesn't look right, let us know. Let us know about hazards. We're going to do all this stuff. And I kind of closed it out with, look, I'm sure you all have work histories and you've heard people stand in front of you and say all this stuff before. And I'm sure you've had bad experiences in the past. There's no words I can say that is going to make you believe me. But in your team you're in, there's a bunch of people who have been hurt and gone through this process with me. They have reported stuff and seen what happens and how I respond. So talk to those people and figure out if they're willing to endorse me.
Yeah.
And I had one of my staff stand up genuinely in that moment and go, everyone can talk to me if you like. I got injured 3 months ago and I went through the process with Richard and it was really fantastic and I'll tell you how it went.
Yeah.
And to just have that buy-in from my team immediately willing to back me up as a leader with new starters, you go, great, we've actually built a culture here. This is what that looks like.
Cost you $50, but
Yeah, no, it was money well spent. Money well spent.
No, that's lovely, mate. That's exactly what you want, right?
Yeah.
Coming from within, yeah. Really nice. What about that is, would you say that building relationships and that rapport and trust with people is really the only lever that you have when you've got a team that have probably heard the same safety messages for, yonks, what else have you got?
Look, there's a couple of great tools. One of them is fear, genuinely, and it's a little bit, and we try not to use it, but ultimately if the safety guy says you have to do something or you go to jail, you're going to be a little bit afraid of the consequences.
Yep.
But the one that's got best traction for me is active listening skills. So when I came into village management, I was one of the groups I'm looking after and still am is facilities maintenance. And you might have picked up from the tone of this conversation, I'm a little bit of a nerd.
I wouldn't say that, mate.
So the tradies and I looked at them and going, these guys have spent a lot of time working with real practical stuff in fields I don't know. I don't know much about electrical work or plumbing or what have you. So
it's this big guy with glasses.
Exactly,
What does he want?
exactly right. And there's a relationship with a lot of the trades and safety where they don't need a police officer. They don't be told they're doing everything wrong. There's a bit of. So I went up. Okay, well, I've got to do these interactions with these guys. I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't know what's going on. I don't want to be embarrassed. Well, I'm going to have to suck it up and see. So I went up to the guys and I said, mate, I don't really know too much about your job. I got this list here to go through. Can you tell me a bit about what you're doing and why it works? And one of the things that, coming back to the things that surprised me, this generally blew my socks off, is most of the tradies are massive nerds about their subject. Mm-hmm. So you get them talking, they want to tell you everything. But at the end of the day, I walk away, all I've done is ask questions. I haven't said a thing, definitely nothing intelligent. All I've done is ask questions, ask follow-up questions, talk to them about it, ask them how they feel about the safety, what they do better, what they need, that sort of thing. I walk away from that conversation having learned an enormous amount, and they walk away from it going, geez, that Richard guy's really switched on. I've given them no reason to believe that.
No,
but
other
just
than giving you time.
Other than time and actually stop to think. And you get a lot of respect as a safety person going in and saying, hey, you're the one who knows how to do this job, not me. It'd be silly if I was the subject matter expert for everyone's roles. Like I've told you how much there is in village services. It's just not doable. So you tell me what's working for your job and what's not. You give me the benefit of your experience and I'll run that through the filter of the stuff that I'm good at and we'll talk about it together. And you do that and people will look at me walking around and go, oh, as Richard, I'd like to have a conversation with him because I've got some stuff I want to talk to him about, as opposed to, oh crap, it's safety, put your hat on.
Well, you got some common language already. Like you already know what they're excited about. You can see in their face what they want to talk about. The fact that you ask the question and that comes to their mind, the first thing, the priority list as such. Like you've already got a cheat sheet of how can I communicate to this person.
And that's what I run my advisors through. It's like you're going to go out there and, hey, you got to get comfortable being wrong. You got to get comfortable feeling vulnerable.
Were you always that comfortable with that?
God, no.
Yeah. How did you get over that?
So I went in as a assistant village manager at the start of COVID, and I'd stayed in my pretty comfortable hospitality bubble, like kind of knowing everything about where I was for a while. And I went in expecting to be a very, very little fish in a very, very big pond. So it was all anxiety. There really wasn't much to get over it, except I'm sitting there in my office going, it's really easy to retreat into just that manager that does what the emails tell them to do and basically disappears. And I just didn't want to be that guy. And it was, I'm going to go out and I'm going to take the advice I give to everybody else. I'm going to try and see what happens. And it was the only idea that I had in my head for something that could work, because I wasn't going to cram the knowledge in and make myself feel comfortable. I had to go out there and genuinely just be vulnerable. The outcome surprised me. I'm an advocate for it now. I expected to survive the process and continue surviving the process going on for as long as I was doing this job. I wasn't expecting it to be kind of a kickoff point for a leadership strategy that would take me through the next half decade.
Yeah.
But that's where we landed.
Probably though, if you reflect back on your, learnings from a psychology point of view, it'd be like, oh, duh. Cool.
Well, look, in theory, yeah, it was sound. But, we're humans. There's a lot of stuff that you learn in psychology that's sound in theory, but then there's a little voice in your head that goes, doesn't really play very well.
There's some fear that comes.
That can't be how it is. It cannot genuinely be that easy. You learn about all the things that can mess with memory, and you learn how you can do all the little tricks that interfere with how people process stuff, and it gives you all this strategy for like running cons. But then if you want to actually be a con man, you have to have that enormous amount of confidence that goes with I believe that these basically magic tricks are going to work for me consistently enough that I can do this.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of what applying psychology to the leadership is. You're taking these abstract principles and you're going in with an enormous amount of faith initially. And the first few villages that I was given to look after was essentially my petri dish. The first couple of things worked. I tried everything. I tried one-on-one mentorship. I tried deliberate culture building 3 or 4 different ways. Tried dozens of ways to have conversations, interact with people.
Trial and error stuff. Yeah.
Came out of it 3 or 4 years later with a really solid bag of tools that I now use. Going, these aren't just ideas anymore. These are my proven tools.
You probably look at the different personalities that take on safety roles, right? And you can have your personality one. You've got a clipboard warrior style.
Yeah.
You can have probably the person who fakes it a little bit and wants to be really bubbly and,
everybody's friend.
Over the top. Yeah, really over the top. And it just isn't genuine. They're saying all the right things, but it's just too much. There's something not right. Those different styles in the environment that you're in, or probably any environment, like they're just not going to work, are they?
No. It's, as I said, people are really, really consistent, and you should have a lot of different approaches that you use. And sometimes, so I had a guy I worked with, a previous role, I was covering about 20 odd villages. I had twice that many in village managers and back-to-back rosters to deal with. And I had one bloke that none of my tricks worked with, none of my tools worked with. I couldn't build a connection. And I'm there, I'm trying to tell him to do something, and I'm trying to convince him in his best interest, everything we've talked about. And he's just going, Rich, I don't understand why I have to do this. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I just kind of had a moment of weakness. And I said, mate, at the end of the day, you're going to do it because this is what you're paid to do and it's your job. And he goes, oh, yeah, okay, no worries. That's genuinely all he needed. That was the communication style for him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, there's nothing wrong with nothing wrong with being a bit of a police officer every now and then, nothing wrong with being friendly.
Yeah.
But it's like a comedian. You have to know your audience. You need to be using the right tool at the right time.
Well, it happens a lot in coaching, right? Like you can get some old school coaches that are just full on, they're just high, direct feedback and just at you all the time.
Yep.
And it just becomes the new base level, right? Compared to the coach that, like what you're saying, is wanting to get to know, giving them time, building relationship, caring about what they got, genuinely interested. And then every now and then that person will, raise that level.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, I've done something here. It's my fault because this isn't normal. Richard isn't normally like this.
So what I like to use is I stole it from cognitive behavioral therapy, the Socratic method.
Yep.
They use it everywhere, all over the place. You've probably run across it before.
Yep.
But just the idea of asking leading questions and getting a person to, like, if I know what the right thing to do is, but if I can get them to figure it out before I do in the conversation, then I didn't really tell them what to do, did I? You walk up to a person, I had housekeepers complaining that bags were too heavy. They were filling up bin bags, the guys had to move them. Yeah. And the grounds team that was filling up the bags couldn't understand. Like, why are you whinging? I can lift them just fine. So I sort of said to them, hey, how often do you make your bed? Like, strip it and remake it. And they're like, once a week. I'm like, you guys are lying to me. You don't do that once a week. You're FIFO. You do it once a month maybe. So you might do it 12 times a year. Right. These guys do 25 beds in one day. So if you're going to injure yourself maybe once every 5 years making your bed at home, these guys are going to run those numbers in less than a week.
Yeah.
So with the bags, what do you think the difference is? The guy's just like, oh, I get it. I didn't even need to finish the thought. He's like, yeah, okay, no, you've sold me. I've figured it out now.
Yeah.
We'll make those bags a bit lighter, absolutely.
Yeah, putting ourselves in other people's shoes. With the leadership teams, right? Like, again, another little complexity, getting them to influence their teams on what you want, right? Because like you were saying, having that vulnerability, even I imagine too, having difficult conversations, that just didn't come naturally. I'm sure there was a time where that ticked over, where it's like, okay, I'm over myself now. I can do this.
Yep.
And prove to yourself that it's not as bad as what it feels. Pushing them to have those difficult conversations with their teams when it's not necessarily their responsibility as such in their eyes. It is, but you know where I'm going, yeah?
I do, exactly. And that's actually something I really struggled with professionally. And I think a lot of people do. I was good at it. So when my leaders didn't do it that well, I'd put my hand up and I'll just do it for you. Like, I'll lead your team for you.
Yeah.
And that was a massive mistake, just absolutely massive mistake. And it's only been recently that I've gotten better at going, you need to be figuring out how to have these conversations. You need to figure out your role. I've recently been running some training trying to do this exactly with our teams. And it has started with going, let's just do the legislation. There's 6 bullet points in the work health safety legislation that explain what the legal responsibilities are for an officer under the Act. So we're going to read them, and I'm going to tell you what they mean for you. And this is the job you signed up for. And if you don't want to do this, unfortunately, your only way out is to stop being a leader. And these are my expectations. And the hard part of that conversation was saying, this is what safety does for you. I'm here to advise, support, develop, train what I'm doing now. But the point at which I intervene and I start doing bits of these 6 points on your behalf, that's our fail point. That's when things have gone horribly wrong. You don't have the capacities. And now the feedback I have to supply up the chain is this person isn't or can't do the job. And that is a hard conversation to have. So getting them to understand that I'm not just there to help them. Part of my role is to audit them and to let the company know, are our leaders doing what we're paying them to do? And to then give them to understand, but with that kept in mind, the person who is going to be on your side, giving you those capacities, helping you every step of the way to get there, is always going to be me. And there's a few leaders, and there's always a few leaders who are just like sponges. You go, hey, there's information you could know. And they're like, really? Tell me. I want to know everything. I'm here to grow. And they're awesome. And you can't rely on them being everywhere. Everybody else is going to be on a change curve. Everybody else is going to start out resistant. And you can get them sometimes with a soft positional bargaining, sometimes informational power, sometimes just by putting the fear of Almighty God in them, just going, look, we go down a bad path if I can't get you to the place where you're doing your job. And you just, it's a harder place to be. It's what lives at the end of the line. And that's what performance managers ought to be, is inspiring. We should be able to get to a performance management process where the person goes, I actually believe that option A here is I succeed in this role, not this person is gunning for me.
Well, like for you though, in your role, there's only one option, right? Because the option of you jumping in and doing different things and taking over for them is not sustainable long term, because you're one person compared to 8 or 9 or however many, right? But in your mind, it's not that simple, right? No, that's not that logical. It's just like, okay, well, these people aren't doing their job. Why is it up to me to be able to then put together, like you mentioned, some training to support them to be able to do that? Realistically, is that necessarily my responsibility? Is that fair? Is that right? Getting over that.
I'm not even going to go out and say that I have completely gotten into the best place for it, but the reason why I started doing leadership roles in the first place, not because I wanted to be in charge of anybody. I worked with some absolutely atrocious leaders, and a big part of me wanted to demonstrate that you could do it well. And the idea of becoming a person who has influence over lives is that you're either going to use that power well or you're going to not use it well. There's plenty of people out there using the power that are given to them by companies over other human lives not well. And so I'm here to do the best bit I can. So a part of what I do is the job that I'm paid to do, which on paper is X. And realistically, I shouldn't go past X because I'm not getting paid for it. But for me, there's then the ethical piece. So I know how much capacity that I've got. Part of it goes into my job, which I do as well as I can do my job. And then I've got this extra capacity to do more. And where more looks like helping people and making outcomes better for the people around me, I feel I've got an ethical responsibility to do it. Usually that winds up at a company's benefit, but hey, not everything's an equal exchange. Because what I get out of it is I get to go at the end of the day and look in the mirror and know that I've spent as much time and energy as I can today trying to largely make things better for the people I work around.
The outcome for you, I'd imagine, is important. Like you mentioned around, hey, I tried this, I trial and error, I did this, and okay, well, why are you trying different things? Why aren't you just doing what you want to do? Like, this is my role, this is X.
Yep.
I'm fulfilling my role, I'm doing it. There's nothing saying necessarily how I need to do it. I'm fulfilling what I'm doing. But hey, the outcome to me is important.
Yep.
And, your motivation, which is a big one, and we talk a lot about this, is just your leadership motivation, something so simple. And it's like anything in life. What's your motivation? Why is someone doing something or saying something or acting a certain way? There's a motivation there. And if that motivation is pure, well, you are going to lean into those difficult conversations and get over yourself and be humble and have a conversation with people that you may not want to, right?
You have sort of hit the nail on the head. It's one of the biggest challenges we have with leaders, sort of if we want to develop them into some way. I'll go in as a safety guy and say, oh, you guys have to do this audit. And they'll go, well, why? And I'll go, well, because it's a compliance piece. Like legally, you have to.
Yeah.
And they'll go, I hear you, but hear me out. I've been doing this job for 8 years. I've never done this audit. Nothing bad has ever happened. Ergo, feel like I can continue calling your bluff pretty safely.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. They're not wrong.
Yeah.
So you got to try to figure out a way with people to get them to their why and find out. And there's a lot of people, particularly in supervisor roles, first level leadership, they actually don't have any drive behind why they're a leader. They're a leader because they got offered a promotion that was more pay. And they haven't really they don't really know how much power they've been given to think about what it is they might even want to do with that.
Yeah, and they've just been thrown in the deep end.
Yep.
What tools have they been given? What role models, essentially? That's all they're doing. They're just going off the previous person, right? And is that good? Is it not? It's a hard situation. So first of all, you were saying with the leaders just around, okay, well, setting a standard. These are the 6 areas that we need to be compliant on as such.
Yep.
Going through it and then, upskilling, training on that, and then, rolling that out to them. Yeah. And that's, and you're in the process of getting that out. Yeah. To the team.
We've done the first round. We've hit most of our leaders. We're going to go through in the start of next year and pick up the stragglers. So our first session was genuinely that from a safety perspective. We had the P&C piece working in tandem with and sort of creating a cohesive narrative. The first piece is, here's what your job is. And the second piece of it is, here's some cool tools to do it. And what I was trying to do with it is give them a handful of ideas and concepts that change the way you think about problems, but are fun to play with. Because I found one of the best ways to get leaders sort of inspired and motivated is to give them an impression of how high the ceiling is for capacity in the field of leadership, and give them a little taste of what that progression looks like and some of the cool stuff that they can do with some of these skills that don't get talked about, that don't really get shared and shown. So they want to know more.
Yeah, you fortune tell what's going to happen.
You do. And I've had a few people come into office and sort of talking with the language that we showed to them, asking a few follow-up questions or asking other things through that same lens, or trying to problem solve the way we taught them to problem solve in the session. And you go, great, this is the foothold. And now the desperate fight is to get them to take the second step and the next until there's enough momentum there that these people are just going to keep going down their journey.
Yeah. Rewarding to see that?
That's what's best part of the role.
Yeah.
It genuinely is the reason why I haven't completely given up and gone and lived in a cave somewhere.
Well, it's funny that, isn't it? It's like, well, it's not necessarily fair. It's not necessarily right that you've got to do it, but you lean into it. You do some extra work. You spend some extra time.
Yep.
And it's the most rewarding part of your role.
It can be quite fun. I mean, I do like the investigation piece for safety, because there are only a handful of jobs out there where you do get to role play as Sherlock Holmes. And
I hope you don't have a hat on site.
I'm hard pressed. Oh, I'm going to get it one day. So they can let me have the pipe. It'll be complete. But look, it is very, very satisfying doing those bits. And there's lots in safety which is intrinsically rewarding, particularly if you like to learn. But doing the hearts and minds piece just never gets old. I think once you've done a little bit of leadership and you've had a go at building culture and you've succeeded in building culture and felt what that's like, it's a high that you just chase for the rest of your career.
Yeah, no, it's good. And next steps with that training, like what is that? You were sort of saying getting that momentum. Is that just a time and being consistent with that push, or what's expected in those standards?
So I've done similar sorts of things before. Where we've found the most luck with it is creating a bit of language through it, which we've done. We've set what the terms and concepts are, and then just making sure that language doesn't die. So when people come to talk to me about issues and problems, the way we're going to talk about it is through the lens of this stuff we spoke about in the training. So we introduced DISC profiling to them. So communication issues are going to come through a lot. Let's talk through DISC. You know where you're at, where do you think they're at? Like, let's play. I introduced them to Covey's Circle of Control, 5 Whys methodology, and the job demand resources model. So you talk about problems in terms of what are our demands, what are our resources, which part of this problem can you control, which part can you only be concerned about. And if we keep making sure that this is the conversations that we have, then this just becomes how we talk about things.
Yeah.
And we did the same thing in safety with musculoskeletal risk. And it's now, you can't find a supervisor that can't talk about musculoskeletal risk at least a bit.
Yeah.
We're doing the same stuff with psychological safety and psychosocial risk right now. We've got another 2-decade journey ahead of us as an industry to get comfy with that. And these smaller bits work the exact same way. It's just making sure the concepts don't die and they're always at the forefront of how we tackle challenges.
What do you reckon with that psychosocial risk? What's the appetite or uptake on that at this point in time with the team as such?
Labrador safety, mate.
Okay.
So there's a lot to it, but we've got two competing forces, genuinely speaking. We've got the older work crew who is really, really trying to shift away from the mentality of we didn't have this when I was a kid, we didn't need it when I was a kid, and it just sounds like people are getting soft.
Yeah. Back in my day.
And you got the younger people who, and like mental health awareness has gotten a lot better. But you remember like when we were kids and you see the self-help books everywhere and like everybody's mums are reading a self-help book, that wasn't good for them. TikTok psychological health and advice is not good for you learn a lot of stuff that you're enthusiastic about, but you're not applying it right. And for myself, looking at people like kids applying principles that they're sound principles, but you're just using it wrong. It's like watching a person using the wrong end of a hammer to bang a nail in.
Well, that algorithm gets you, and it's your same philosophy, right? It's like, I've proven it once, I've proven it twice, they've seen it a third time, it must be right. This video for the third time.
Absolutely.
It's
driven in, availability heuristic right there, mate.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of drive in the younger crew, our workforce essentially, going mental health is really important, and they're right. But the conflation is, I'm upset, ergo I've got a mental health problem. And I know, you're actually supposed to get upset when something bad happens. Those are the rules. Healthy brain. If somebody close to you passes away and you cry, you don't have depression.
No.
You've got perfectly functioning, healthy brain. So right now, what we saw in 2020, the Enough is Enough report, which was a fantastic report, put a lot of the mind sites on a bit of high alert, and the regulator as well, is what we wanted to do was use psychosocial as a euphemism. And it was being used as a euphemism for the worst stuff, self-harm, sexual assault. That's what psychosocial meant. We're now moving more to a place where psychosocial means what it's meant since the 60s, which is almost like the word chemical. If I tell you there's chemicals in an apple, I haven't really told you anything. This conversation is a psychosocial event because we're two brains talking to each other. It influences us. Say psychosocial risk is a big category of things. We're talking about how much control do you have over the work you do and the order you do it in? Are you working alone or are you working remote? Do you feel like there's good organizational justice in your company? If there's not, that's a psychosocial hazard. So going and looking at things like we're going to assess the outcomes for reported HR incidents. And if they're inconsistent, we can demonstrate a psychosocial risk. Companies aren't going to be there for years. So right now, there is an enormous amount of enthusiasm, but it's focused at the top end, the sharp point of the risk, and lots getting missed out. My last company, I went on a 5-year journey with them to get them to understand psychosocial from the ground up. And where I wanted to get them to was understanding psychological safety climate, which in layman's terms is how much does the average worker think the company actually cares about them? And the academic research has demonstrated that if you get that high, pretty much all of your risk in your company gets lower. It's the root cause of root causes. It's the panacea, the golden goose of safety and efficiency and all the other bits and pieces.
Treating someone well.
treating someone well. Who would have thought treating people like humans had good outcomes? We're all pretty surprised over here in the research crowd. But getting from psychosocial risk and sexual assaults and suicides all the way to psychological safety climate for my last company was a 5-year journey that I was able to almost get them to before I left. And they're well on the track now. And I'll do it again here. And there's a lot of other very intelligent people in the occ health and safety and psychology intersection who are doing their own works in their own fields. A few of them that I talk to around industry, and it is a big, big push, but we're looking at the same 20-year hike that we looked at with musculoskeletal risk. It's a big, scary thing that people are learning about.
Do you enjoy that process?
When it's working well, yeah.
Yeah.
We get frustrated at the delays, but
just when there's some improvement, you can see something changing.
Once you see it start to shift is absolutely fantastic. And being a part of the forefront of industry, figuring out a new way to do things better has been really rewarding.
Yeah.
It's been quite cool. Also, like any kid who picked a degree at random when they were 16, having that validated at some point is rewarding too.
Yeah, oh, that's good. Yeah. Was there a lot of that when you were, going through your degree?
Very, very little. So at the time I was going through my degree, there was a lot of research being done into the FIFO community because there really weren't any communities living like it anywhere else in the world. West Australian FIFO community was a completely novel way to arrange people, completely novel culture, an absolute bedrock for research, but all of it was absolutely negative because at the time it was an unregulated, unrestrained, you talk to people who've been working in the FIFO community in the 90s and it's hell. So mostly we were just looking at it to go, hey, this is how badly people can wind up treating each other and how badly a brain can break. And that's kind of cool. Yeah. But psychological risk and psychosocial safety was being spoken about in academic fields from the 60s, but still pretty niche until about 2010 onwards. And by that point, I'd left uni and I wasn't involved in it directly in that line anymore.
No, it's interesting. The differences between rosters, right? So you're on a 4 and 3 roster, you were saying prior to. What about all the different rosters and their impacts? Is that something that you see from that psychosocial risk that impacts that as well? Or
the cool thing is we actually have some really, really robust data on this. Like anecdotally, people will tell you the truth, but the research lines up. So it was a 2018 mentally healthy FIFO investigation report done by the government. They looked into all sorts, drug use, relationships, mental health. Really, really, really good report.
Yeah.
One of the bits they did was look really closely at roster durations and basically swing arrangements and how that affected health. What they found was anything even time, not bad.
Okay. Yeah, so 5 and 5 or
if you're doing, they found that doing a 3 and 3, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, it's better for your mental health than doing a 2 and 1, which is a little bit counterintuitive because that's 3 weeks of solid 12-hour days. Yeah. But then the 3 weeks off, the second you're anything other than even time, you're running at a deficit mentally and physically. Yeah. And the interesting thing in village services is this has been just known for close to a decade now. And village services is one of those places which is still lagging in providing mostly the 2 and 1 rosters, which talk to anybody doing them and they'll tell you, what's one thing that you can change about my working life that will make things better? Even time roster.
Yeah. And is that just purely from a commercial point of view, it makes more sense?
It's a big driver. Village services, and unfortunately it is commercially a bit of a race to the bottom. Your clients are looking to minimize their spend as much as possible wherever they can. It's a very, very competitive environment between a few major players in village services. So anybody who's sort of pitching, we're going to put our people on 8 and 6 at the sort of remuneration that's actually going to attract people away from those other areas, they're probably not going to win the bid.
And that's not applied on the businesses by any means because they're there to be commercially sound, right? Like there's no point in giving someone something for 12 months and then going bust and they don't have a job, right?
The argument that always gets said, anytime it's raised at a high enough level, you go, well, fundamentally, if we're not winning bids, we can't employ anyone. We can't put anyone on any roster. Yeah. So something does need a shift, and it's like slowly, the psychosocial piece is being the driver between amending a lot of these shifts durations.
Yeah. Have you drawn the line and the connection between your approach with your client and how you're building relationships and earning trust and how that can impact that though? So for instance, if you're able to build that relationship, they don't necessarily want to have the cheapest service provider because, hey, we like dealing with Richard. He makes us look good and we like him. It's good fun, all that sort of stuff. He's got some dry jokes, but anyway, we'll live with that, right?
That has been the feedback.
But you know what I mean? Like, and you see it a lot, whether it is in logistics, like transport particularly, right? Is that you will have people, racing to the bottom from a contractual point of view. And there's companies that want to do that because it makes commercial sense. But, longer term, well, some of the shit we've got to deal with because we've got a cheap operator and they're cutting corners, is it really worth it in the long run?
Well, Village Services has a bit of an interesting go because we'll get enlisted by the client. Our customers are the resident, which is the client's workforce. So it's the way I put it to the residents, because they'll come and they'll say, hey, the food's rubbish, everything sucks, I'm unhappy, can you fix it? I'll go, look, you're talking to me and I hear you, I do. But the spend per day for you is $14. And if you'd like it to be better, you need to spend a little bit more money. But it's not you. So it's very much is you've gone out to a restaurant with your mate and you've got no money. So your mate says, I'll pay for you. Your mate's a bit of a joker, so he just buys rubbish, stuff you hate. Is it a rubbish restaurant or do you have a bad friend? And so you got these residents going, this restaurant sucks. But the actual problem is they've got a bad friend in their boss.
Yeah, and their friend's actually saying that the restaurant's bad.
And so you say, man, I ordered everything fantastic. This restaurant's just dodgy. I don't know what to do it. So we wind up in a situation where we want to build a relationship with the client, and we do. And where it's successful, it's great. But if the client hasn't paid for a service that their employees are going to enjoy, then the feedback they're going to get from their employers is we're not enjoying the service. Yeah. And then instead of going, oh, well, we didn't do the right thing, we undercut, we undervalued you, all this sort of stuff that's going to taint their morale, it tends to be a lot easier to use a convenient scapegoat. And again, you can't blame them because this is just how the game is played. This is the natural consequences of
human nature.
It is exactly how we go around in circles. And I've seen a few buck the trend and be really courageous with it. And I've seen a few contracts persist exclusively because there's been a good relationship. But more critically, I've seen a few more contracts end simply because there's a poor relationship.
Yeah.
And that's where we see the relationship piece being is more the companies are going to make a decision that kind of cuts their nose off to spite their face because they're not enjoying the relationship with the senior leaders in the village services team. Yeah. More so than the other way around.
Yeah. Inheriting contracts, inheriting facilities, you don't have much control over that, right? But it can impact a lot of the stuff that you're responsible for.
It's one of the big pieces we're going in with our client at the moment is you go ahead and say, great, well, we've got this massive village and it's been designed and built by people who probably never intended to work in it. Or it's been built from a resident's perspective, not a worker's perspective. And so they'll come in and say, hey, your injury rate's really, really high. And I'll go, yeah, it's a bit higher than the baseline, but it's also because the infrastructure standards are down here relative to the industry standard. So a part of it is bringing the client over and going, hey, in the field of safety, we share a lot of risk. Like a lot of this is stuff you control, which makes, from the law's perspective, you're the responsible person. And if a person gets seriously hurt or passes away, it's going to come down to whether or not we, on the contractor side, sufficiently raise these hazards, which we have. I've emailed you, we've spoken about this, and whether or not you've done something about it. So we need to work as a partnership. And that is the going ahead and saying frustrating place of being safety in where you're inheriting facilities. There's a lot of stuff that hurts people that you just can't fix. No matter who you talk to in your own company, you need to bring your client over the line and go, we need to fix stuff on behalf of, again, people who don't work for you, but you need to understand you're responsible.
That input into contracts and how they work and different things like that, and I'm not sure whether you started before the contract was already there. Do you get a lot of input into amendments over time and things, or?
Depends on who I'm working with.
Okay.
So I worked in one of my other roles with a mobilization manager. And for him, it was really important that safety be there for the page turns and the read-throughs. I had a mobilization process. I'd go through and look at the village and request the sort of compliance documentation that the client ought to have on their village and sort of create a framework of the risk. And what I would do is I'd say, here's the stuff that all falls within what we usually call the risk. And here's the areas that are high risk in this village that aren't high risk elsewhere that we need to have a high level conversation about. The most mature situations, we'd have that high level conversation and we'd decide as a business whether or not we want to engage with that risk. It doesn't really happen an enormous amount. Yeah. Usually on our end as the village services provider, if the client's willing to give us the contract, we're willing to work on it. And then we'll kind of figure out how to make it safe later.
Yeah.
We're not going to go ahead and say, look, we put all these resources into place, we've mobilized everything, we've got it up there, but our safety guy says this one's a little bit sketchy. I don't know that a lot of village services providers are at the place where they're bringing their safety people in ahead of the game enough to actually have a sway. But at the very least, the maturity level can be at the point where we can go in with open eyes and controls and sort of know what we're dealing with.
You've got, yeah. Yeah, well, and again, it probably gets back to, those people that are working through those contracts, isn't it? And what their motivations are. Are they looking for a good long-term outcome, or are they looking for the best deal to make themselves look good? It's hard to...
You can't blame the people in category B. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all here working because we want to look after our people. Mm-hmm. And we're going to prioritize that. It's very hard to hold that against a person.
No, that's right. Yeah. One thing that popped up, the relationship between people and capability, other allies that you have, because, you've got, things that you want to get off your chest and talk through and think out aloud and all that sort of stuff, and that relationship is important too. You don't want your team gossiping or talking ill of others, right? And essentially, if you boil it down, well, that's what you're doing.
Yep.
It's okay to do that in a secluded area, but as long as you get to a positive outcome or an outcome that's going to actually have some benefit, right?
So when I was first came on as a village manager, that was a genuine problem because I was the most senior person in the village. The closest people I worked with were my supervisors. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing when you're the village manager is there is nowhere you can go where you're not looking at something you're responsible for having made sure is right. Go back to your room. Guess who's responsible for that room being clean and in good order?
You can't switch off.
You walk into your room as a village manager every single night and you kind of do, and like the one I had, we had a 10-point room audit. It took ages after I stopped being a VM to stop automatically doing room audits when I walked into rooms. You go to get some food and you're the guy who's responsible for that food being good. So there's a problem, you're dealing with it, right? Yeah. Go to the gym, guess who looks after the gym folk? Go for a walk around the area, guess who does grounds, Yeah. There's nowhere you can go where you're not looking at your job and no one you can talk to who's at a level that's appropriate to talk to. So you better hope you've got some good support at home. Yeah. And what a lot of village managers used to do is they just be like, screw it. I'm just going to have a little purple circle that I gossip to, which is, from a human perspective, totally understand how they got there. Mm-hmm. From a, could you possibly do more damage to your culture perspective? Yeah.
Particularly when it's not done in the right context and done with people below you as well. When you're a village manager, there's not necessarily another village manager sitting next to you, is there? Right?
You got to be just, then it's be an appropriate distance. And I was always pretty good at doing that as the village manager gig. Every now and then I'd pop into the tavern and have a drink with the team. But usually it was strategic. The team's a bit low. They've had a really hard day. So the village manager is going to, for the first time in anyone's living memory, go and have a drink with them. And it's going to boost everybody up for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's, but then like my social interactions with the team is still very calculated and very much a part of the job that I'm doing.
How do you find like navigating that? Being like you want to have a good relationship with them, right? And you want to have some trust there. Not getting too close possibly. How have you found that? Is that something that you're mindful of, or?
It's something that I'm really, really mindful of, but I don't know if I want to say fortunately or not, but it's something I've always found really, really straightforward to do. Keeping that distance with people where you're maintaining a very particular relationship of employee-employer, to get along with everybody, be friendly with everybody, sort of the safe social circle of the jokes and the communication, but just be that one step removed socially. And the way I always sort of said to my supervisors, trying to coach them to the same way, is if I sit around with my team and everybody's bitching about the company, when I'm bitching about the company, I'm talking about the people over in the support office that aren't doing the right things by me. When the staff are bitching about the company, that's me. because what the company is to you is essentially your working environment, which is the thing that I'm doing. And so it might sound like we're all getting along and sharing a grievance, but I'm complaining about something else and they're complaining about me. And it just, you need to realize that to the people who work for you, you are the company. Company's not a dude. You're a dude. You're the thing they're upset at. You're just the placeholder for what the company is to them.
You're the responsible person. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's really difficult for me to lose sight of that, which makes it pretty simple to keep it a little bit separated. Yeah. It is isolating, but you deal with that at home. Yeah. Like you find your outlets.
Yeah. Well, talk to us about that. Like, what do you do?
So it's a bit of a boring answer, but it's a good one, actually. When I was a younger man, much younger, teenager, my big problem was anger, like massively.
Okay.
And
short fuse?
Very, very short fuse. And I get angry. I get angry for a while. It was an issue. And dealt with it. And the way I dealt with it at the time is I was practicing martial arts, and I went and I became an instructor myself. And I got a lot into the discipline and the meditation and the self-control components. And there's a lot of really, really cool stuff you can do if you've got a bit of a background in that meditation and discipline piece and a bit of a background in psychology. I always say the brain is like a VCR player. Everybody knows how to put the VCR in and make the thing go. No one knows how to set the time. Once you know how to set the time on the VCR player, you can do a lot of really, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So for me, it is just that skill of noting, realizing when I'm feeling something and realizing when it's affecting me.
Yeah.
So I'll mess with my team every now and then. People react really weird. I'll be sitting there and I'll be like, hey guys, just letting you know, I'm feeling really, really frustrated today. I'm having a pretty massive time internally. So if I'm a bit different, that's where it's at. But just like I've said it to you and just in that tone of voice, and they're like, hey, that's not how you express frustration. What are you actually talking about? And I go, well, I get to make a choice about whether or not me being frustrated affects the words I use with you guys or how I talk, my body language. I'm still the guy running the ship. So I'm going to make a decision about whether or not I do that. I'm not going to do it helplessly.
Yeah.
Which is how a lot of people respond to emotions. Like it makes them do stuff. I've spent the last 20 odd years of my life getting myself to a point where my emotions don't make me do things, which puts me in a position where I can do this kind of cool stuff. I can manage these sorts of feelings, and then I can go ahead and go, right, I realize that's there. I realize that's a point that's bothering me.
Yeah.
And I've got a plan for dealing with it. I'm going to go and I'm going to play some violent video games or read a book or meditate or talk to my wife or, any of the things you can do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to deal with it then. I can't deal with it now. So I'm not going to let it bother me now because it's not a thing I can control.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, that's not really the sort of advice a lot of people can pick up and play with. You do need to spend a bit of time getting yourself to a headspace where you can do that stuff. But if anybody has a spare 5 or 6 years, I really do recommend getting into that meditation, mental control piece because it has had some benefits.
Yeah, well, you've found that it works, right?
Yeah.
You found something for you.
We're detecting a theme of scientific advancement out here, mate.
It's not a hard equation, is it really?
No,
you think about it.
Give it a go. It doesn't work. Do something else. Rinse, repeat.
This makes me worse. Shit. That's good. What martial arts?
So my first black belt was in Taekwondo.
Okay, yeah, hang on. Yeah, this is a flex here. Yeah. My first black belt. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go. Yeah.
When I was but a wee kidlet. Yeah. And then when I moved to the city, I took up karate.
Okay, yeah.
And I'd sort of left it for a few years, and so I started from the beginner again. And I wound up, after a few years, a black belt in that, and they let me be an instructor. So I used to teach around the Kubel up down to Rockingham area.
Okay, yeah,
for like a solid 5 or 6 years. It was great fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that I used going into like professional leadership, I learnt teaching people how to punch each other, which was a different type of thing, but same sorts of principles.
Yeah, look, the question comes up straight away is I would imagine that you telling a kid from that area, hey, you need to do this because I said, is not going to fly.
No.
Right?
No.
So you're building up a relationship, you're building up a rapport, some trust, you're doing all that sort of stuff. Same framework.
Absolutely. I will say though, because at the time I had a lot of friends who were studying to become proper teachers. Yeah. And I always used to flex on them by saying, it's dead easy to be a teacher. I got people come to my class each week. They're super easy to manage because kids want to learn how to be ninjas.
Yes.
Yeah, you're selling something they're buying.
Yeah.
You don't get that with math.
No, that's good. Does your team know that you got a black belt or what?
Yeah.
Have you thought about maybe that, hey, it's not all this relationship stuff, mate, that it may be just the fact that they're worried that they're going to get a karate kick or what?
Just absolute fear. We're running the lead effect training and talking about circular control. Yeah. And I go, how much do you control my body and what I say? I'm like, cool, get up. And there's a block in karate called Mawashi UK. It's a big spinny arm block. It's tricky, right? So what we used to do is I would teach the white belts and we'd follow along and then we'd get them to do it fast and the arms would flail around. We'd all have a good laugh. And I said, that's what's going to happen here. So I ran through it slow. Then I did the full speed. And just like my class of white belts, these leaders and managers all flapped their arms about and we had a giggle. And everyone's taking their seats. And I hear Josh saying, like really quietly to one of the other leaders, he goes, so the actual lesson here is don't fuck with safety.
I'm not actually just showing you a technique here. Yeah. There's a greater lesson.
This is a lesson.
No, that's good. What's so just the particulars though? We all deal with, I suppose, having a short fuse from time to time. Like, what did you particularly find about martial arts that helped you with that?
So the styles I was doing and the people I was with at the time, really, really, really calm people. So I trained in Karratha with a guy named Abner who was 60 years old. And he was a Taekwondo 7th Dan. So that's up high enough that you're supposed to call them a Taekwondo master. 9th Dan, and you get to be a grandmaster.
Okay.
He's not going to live long enough to get there. But a lot of the people in training had similar sorts of stories. And a lot of people were able to do really, really impressive stuff. Like the sort of shape that you get into, the sort of stuff you can do with Taekwondo is physically demanding, these big jumps, spinning kicks, that sort of thing. And the way it was sold to us is you can do this stuff once you've got control of yourself. If you can't make yourself sit still, if you can't control how you talk and act and speak, you've got so little self-control, how are you going to be able to direct a body into doing some of this really impressive stuff? And again, like everything else, I'm like, okay, well, give it a shot. Let's try following the leader. And you learn this amazing stuff. You learn, I've got like photos of myself doing like presentations at festivals, like giant flying kicks and what have you. We did all this crazy fun aerial flipping nonsense. But it all came from, we needed to really know what our body was doing, where it was at. And it's really hard to gain that sort of self-awareness without using it in other parts of your life. Yeah. And the control came with it.
So your parents got you into that?
Yeah.
And was that their thought process? Is that, hey, Richard's got an anger problem here, and if we give him some dangerous techniques, that will solve the problem?
It's going to be fantastic. We'll teach him to kill.
Yeah.
No, the funniest thing, well, I actually had my left elbow used to overextend.
Yeah.
And it was literally, a doctor said, get him into like martial arts, strengthen up the muscles around martial arts and swimming. That's
so
what we had
available. So it's a 2-for-1 deal.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, cool. I got some great life lessons out of it, and my arm doesn't do funny stuff. So I guess everybody wins.
Yeah. How good.
I know, right?
Your parents should thank that doctor.
They lucked right out on that one, mate.
Yeah.
Not every day you get to hit a 2-for-1.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And you still train? You're still involved?
I still train. Not as involved in the club anymore. My own family's taken up a lot of my mental energy. Yeah. So once my family got a bit bigger and I got more involved in it, so I really can't train for 4 hours a day anymore.
Yeah.
Just sort of where I was at, running around competing and what have you.
Yeah. So 2 kids?
2 kids.
Yeah. How do you go now? You've been, doing this lifestyle for a while. Has it changed much with children that you found, like for yourself?
I get less time for myself specifically. Single guy, you get loads and loads of recreation time. So pretty much all I did was work and think about work, and then that's where I did lots of the theory crafting and a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
The trick for me is just separating how you sort of work with large groups of people, and you sort of guide and coach and grow and develop human beings who are adults. And then you got your kids, and you try and guide and coach and train and build them, but it's different.
They don't want to listen as much.
It is different. But my kids are nowadays, they are what my stable point is. Both my children are absolutely fantastic, and I recharge my batteries spending time with them.
Okay.
Which, they've been absolute godsend for managing this life.
Yeah.
My wife is amazing at holding everything when I'm not, physically there. And so it's turned into a really, really good place for me.
That's a cool subject too, is just on, partners at home, right? Is that, it's not just yourself doing that lifestyle, is it? It's the family.
Yeah, you have to tackle it as a team. You really are working with somebody if you want to make a family work. Yeah.
How do you find that as a relationship? What works for you guys to navigate that?
Well, when I first started up in FIFO, I was sold 2-in-1. That's what I was doing. And I started FIFO in March of 2020, which was exactly when COVID happened. So we went from 2-in-1s to 4-in-2s.
Shit.
So my youngest had just been born, and I was coming back after a month, and she was completely different because a month for a newborn is massive. And the first couple of months of swings, didn't recognize me when I came back.
Yeah.
Really, really rough psychologically.
Yeah, I bet.
So basically what the priority is, and it's really, really frustrating for people in FIFO, I know, you come back home and you've been working 12-hour days for God knows how long, and you get in and your wife needs a rest because she's also been doing the single mum thing for the same amount of time, and that's hard bloody work.
Mm-hmm.
And the first thought that jumps into your head is going, oh, hang on, this isn't fair. I've just been doing 12-hour days for 2 weeks, earning all this, come on, give us a break. And it just doesn't work like that. So that trying to avoid the selfishness and actually understand the purposes of this relationship is we're here to support each other. My wife gives absolutely everything she can to make it work, and I do the same thing on my end. And we've got a pretty good understanding that even if we're not working perfectly all the time, and nothing always works perfectly, at least we know we're trying our best.
It's a common thread with the stuff that we do with leaders, just around getting over that speed hump of it's not fair, it's not right, and versus, hey, do you want the outcome?
Yep.
Right? And I don't know, psychologically, right, we've got this thing that we get hung up on of, okay, well, it's not fair, it's not right, and then we stop, right? What is that?
So it's a really cool negative thought loop. I've done this for a few housekeeping teams because you ask housekeeping teams, right, who the problem is, it's admin. You ask admin who the problem is, it's housekeeping, right?
There's always someone to point a finger at, isn't there?
Yeah, you got a 24-hour kitchen operation. I guarantee you, it doesn't matter which one you walk into, you can sound like a fortune teller. You go, hey guys, I got a feeling that the day shift thinks the night shift is lazy and the night shift thinks the morning shift is entitled.
Yeah.
Because they do.
I've heard that before.
Yep. And it's just everywhere. So the way I put it to them, I get a whiteboard out and I draw a big circle. And at the top, I put, they won't respect me. And I draw a line because I won't respect them, and a line of cause. And this is our loop. They won't respect me because I won't respect them, or they won't do X because I won't do Y, so on and so forth. And then I'll say to them, you've got this up here is them, this down here is you. Between those two options, which one do you actually have complete control over? And even the most reluctant will go, okay, well, that's me. I'll go, great. So you guys got this big sticky problem going in a big loop, and your solution to the problem is to focus on trying to change the one part of it you've got no influence over. That's your goal. That's how you're tackling this. Does that feel like a good way to be about it?
Well, the whole time, I'm the person who suffers the most.
Yep. And the way I put it to them is the guy in the loop who can look at that and go, oh, I control me and I can break the loop. And I'm going to be the last person who gets disrespected. So I'm not going to get my revenge. I'm not going to get my fairness and my justice, but I'm going to fix the problem. That person is what we wind up calling a leader. That's what a leader is. It's the person who goes in and goes, well, it might have happened to me, but I'll be the last person it happens to. Or I'm going to fix on behalf of somebody else. I'm going to make it better because I can actually solve the problem, not because it's going to satisfy a sense of fairness and justice. And you go, when we find the people amongst you who do that, you're going to be the people that I'm looking at for my succession planning. You're my leadership potentials in the team. And if you've got an interest in growing and developing and doing more than what you're doing right now, these are the sort of problems you got to look at as opportunities to grow.
Those little markers of does what's right compared to what feels good as such.
Yeah. No, we all like to do what feels good. Who amongst us has not had a bucket of ice cream?
Never, no. Not this week, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing well.
Yeah. So that's your go-to in regards to, different shifts, different departments, because there's warehouses, right? Manufacturing plants, there's different departments within that. There's different shifts within that, hours of operation. It's very common.
It is always steel manning. It is you stand out in front of a group of people and you make their case for them as strongly as you can. You convince them that you've heard them, you've understood them so well, in fact, that you've made the argument better than they could have themselves. And then you go ahead and you do the same thing for the other group. And you give them to understand that they're just fixated on their own viewpoint.
Dealing with it too is Because there's this thing, and I've fallen into this trap, and plenty of people do, is that night shift and day shift always hate each other. That's just how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, I've got an opportunity to, fix that possibly, or I can just say that, that's just how it is. That's the law.
Yeah, there's cats and dogs out here.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
They won't get along, and that's just how it is. That's life, right? Getting over that hump before you even do that is the thing. Right?
Look, it's the same as saying it's perfectly natural for a car to fall into a hole if you drive into a hole, and then use it as an argument for never building a bridge.
Yeah, I like that one. That's good. Yeah,
and that's sort of where we're at. These problems pop up. They pop up everywhere because that's sort of what happens in this environment. But solutions can also happen too. So almost everywhere I've gone and tried to solve these sorts of problems, I've found some forms of success. And admittedly, while everything is solvable, some is going to require more effort or work or resources than you have at your disposal. Yeah. And those ones are the ones you can't do anything with. In the same way, any staff member can be made a superstar, but some might require more of you than you can give, and that's where performance management winds up stepping in, not because they're a lost cause, but because you got a staff of like 50 and you can't put 80% of your time into one human being, even though it would get a result.
Yeah. That maintaining standards piece, right? And you're going through that now with what you were saying with training. You've set a standard, you've communicated that, you've trained that. How does that look for your teams?
Well, we've got a bunch of different teams, and the solution looks a little different for a lot of them.
Just based on the personalities and
based on the personality environment. So
where they're at, yeah.
Well, you take a kitchen. So I'm a head chef, and I want to maintain a standard. Anytime I want to see what everybody's up to, I can a 5-minute walk at the kitchen, and I've seen everybody at work. And I sort of know where everybody's at, and I can sort of get everybody onto the line. If I make you a housekeeping supervisor on a village the size of, say, Roy Hill, even if you're boots on the ground 24/7, it will take you 45 minutes to physically visit everybody. And on a 12-hour shift, you only really have so many 45-minute chunks, and then you've got another job that you have to do.
There's always something else.
So you might get to see all your workers 2-3 times a day, even if you're spending most of your time in the field. That's a very specific and novel challenge. And it's a really, really difficult one to resolve. So for the kitchen team, it's dead easy. Supervisors, the standard. If you walk past something that isn't quite right, do something about it. This sits on you always. Yeah. Housekeepers, it's full court press. It's like, who can we get in the field? How can we make sure they're getting the same message every single time? And you sort of come back to your leaders and go, I'm not going to tell you how to do it exactly, because this is your team and I'm going to give you a bunch of tools. I'm going to tell you how I can tell whether or not it's working in you too. And really simply, if we're cleaning rooms and I go talk to 5 people and I see 5 different ways that rooms are being cleaned, that tells me that you're not out there driving a standard, because that's like a baseline. Like everybody's sort of doing the rooms the same sort of way, because this is the way we work around here. Yeah. So getting them to go, your responsibility as a supervisor mostly is letting everybody who's here to help you, your operations managers, your HSE managers, your P&C wandering around when he gets out of his office, who are interacting with your team, know what the standard is by setting a clear one. Yeah. So right now we have a fuzzy standard. Nobody really knows how the work's supposed to be done. So anybody who talks to the team is like, well, I suppose this is close enough, a way to do it. So we're not driving anything. And that's honestly next step. Yeah. Is teaching our leaders how to set a standard to drive a standard.
From a safety point of view, right? Different metrics reporting, right, is always hard. Lots of reactive and, markers, TRIFA, hard to really get a scope on how you're going. What have you sort of found with, from that safety point of view to know we're on a good spot? Like we're going in a good direction?
It's a really tricky question. Yeah. Because the research, the literature, even the courts show us that TRIFA, AFA, LATIFA doesn't do anything. Mm-hmm. Nothing about low TRIFA guarantees you're not going to kill somebody next week. Yeah. The best thing you can say of a safety system is the way that you say that it's effective is because it's achieving the result that you want it to achieve in the work. So as much as it is really, really nice to go a couple months without really hurting anybody, the background injury rate is going to be a background injury rate. accidents are going to happen. People are going to get hurt.
Humans are involved.
The zero harm mindset winds up in a non-compliance sort of mindset where people are just covering things up.
Yeah. Non-reporting. Yep.
Horrible place to be in. The way I physically gauge whether or not safety systems are working is when I go and talk to frontline teams, what kind of conversation they're having with me. If I go up to you and you're sweeping the floor and I go, hey, what's going to hurt you doing this? And you've got answers for me. And then I go, well, okay, that's the stuff that can hurt you. What are you doing to keep that from happening? And you've got good answers for me again. I really don't even care what the answers were, or even if they line up with the company policy. Because the thing that we've achieved is I've got an individual working here who has a clear head about what's going to hurt him and a clear head about what he's doing to stop it. And now my next thought is, can I learn from what this guy knows? Because he's been sweeping floors for a lot longer than I have, because I've been running around playing safety guy. And realistically emphasizing building a safety system from the bottom up. Like, here's how the work is being done safest by our people who understand safety and the work simultaneously, because we've driven both knowledges. And now we're going to have our living operational documents, our SOPs, WINs, SWPs, whatever you want to call them, be influenced by how the team does the work. Then you've got a robust safety system.
Yeah.
And then I stopped looking at the TRIFR or the incident rates or any of the other sort of reporting nonsense that we put in there, because what I know is we've got a team that is thinking consciously about keeping themselves okay.
Yeah, it tells the story, doesn't it? And if you do that to a number of people, you get a good cross-section and a good survey, right?
Yep.
Compared to going up to someone, it's like, okay, well, this situation, safety-wise, it's like, well, we're in some trouble here.
Yeah, exactly.
Hard to report on though, right? How do you communicate that? Is that a building of trust with the people above you, beside you, your client, to be able to, hey, Richard knows what he's talking about?
They're always going to need the numbers. And a big part of what I do for them is promote statistical literacy. So the numbers say what they say. I teach them about basics like confidence intervals. Like, yes, the number has changed, but has it changed in a way that's statistically significant? Well, you'd like me to show you how we demonstrate that. Create narratives through the numbers. Like, yes, our all incident frequency rate has gone up, but we've been spending the last 6 months driving reporting culture with our new starters. So they're going to report their little niggles and aches and pains. If it didn't go up, I would say we're failing.
Yeah.
And just getting people to understand what these numbers can, because they're not useless. They're not useful in predicting what might happen next, but they're very useful in understanding what our story has been and what is working and isn't working as like an indicator.
Yeah.
So getting them to sample that like that makes what they're asking for not useless to them. And I can make them sound like intelligent questions instead of just, we want numbers. Make people feel good about the questions they've asked. They'll accept the answers you give them. And then you fill in with well, this is what's actually important and why. So a lot of mine sites have something like quality leadership in the field interactions, like QSIs or LIFs or whatever it is they want to call them. There is a lot of good emphasis on getting leaders out in the field in a meaningful way and then logging it in your data collection system. Teaching leaders how to do that bit well, again, not even super concerned if they come back and log them all into a data system. Like, I want enough to know that they're actually doing something.
Yeah.
But what I want is to feel confident that my supervisors can go out, have a conversation with a worker, and know whether or not that worker knew what they were talking about. Not just they've ticked a job off on their list. I talked to a worker, go me.
Yeah. Well, it's all interlinked, right? Like,
it is.
Everything from safety, like you've just been explaining, to building relationships with people and having that vulnerability and rapport and, taking yourself down. Like, you're dealing with those people and there are all these little touch points that you're having. Do you find that part of your role that you are getting out, like that's one of the first things that you do to get around and see the team? Like, what do you sort of find like with that? Is that something that you actively find that you do?
So team as big as we've got, with me being just one little guy, I try to make sure, heard it as I said it. I try to make sure I got bang for my buck.
Of course, you're 6'6", by the way. Yeah. People are listening and not watching for no other reason. Yeah.
Yep. So I try and make sure that I've got bang for my buck where I go. I'm really, really cognizant of managing around my managers. So where I push my advisors to be out in the field as much as they can with the frontline staff, and I get out there a fair bit, most of my effort is on addressing the groups and the teams and managing what the team culture and dynamic looks like. So I tend to fixate on the pre-starts and then the leaders themselves, because I did my bit going, I'm going to brute force this. I'm going to get out and see everyone. And when I was a village manager, that was critical. Like having the boss out there checking on people just to make sure they're okay, making them positive interactions, making you feel good about where you're working and who you work for. Gold. As a safety manager, I've got less power to do that. Like, yes, the safety manager is going to come out and talk safety. That doesn't tell me anything about the company or my bosses, right?
Yeah.
But if I can get the supervisors and operations managers out there because I built their capacity, that's going to get the results I got when I was that guy. So that's where most of my bang for buck goes to, is focusing on that. And it's horrible because there's some stigma around the notion of a trickle-down effect. Doesn't work with money. Can work with leadership.
Yeah.
You know, if you make stronger leaders in like the middle of the pack and your supervisors and VMs, that's going to flow down to the teams. And if I can teach my guys how to manage their teams well, then they're going to reinforce my message. So when I stand out in front of the group or my advisors go and talk to them, they're like, yeah, this is the same kind of stuff my supervisor talked to me about. Like, it's really good to know that my operations team, my safety team are on a lockstep conceptually. That makes me feel like the company really means this stuff. A real danger that you can get is, and we've had it a bit before, is where your average worker thinks of safety as sitting outside of the company, where safety has this message and they're saying, you know, safety over production, look after yourself first, report everything.
Yeah.
But then what we're really told by our bosses is something different. So who really cares what safety says? They're not the ones paying me.
Safety slows us down. Yeah.
Does not work unless you can get buy-in from people's leaders. You cannot go around a leader to sell a safety message. And that's been a hard lesson for me to learn. I'm not the number one guy in that relationship. If my supervisors aren't saying similar sorts of stuff to me, then they're not going to listen to me. So the supervisors need to be where my effort is.
Yeah, not sustainable long term again. You've only got a certain amount of hours in the day. It's just not going to get there. And then the other thing too is just around, again, back to those motivations. And I keep harping on about this from a safety point of view, because I reckon there's the dual effect of being in a leadership role, but then also being in a compliance role.
Yep.
Is that it can tend itself for people wanting power, status, and telling people what to do. You know, it can attract those types.
Yeah, look, to put it bluntly, you get some dicks. And I try not to say we're trying to avoid policeman safety, because one of my best safety advisors that I've worked with, actually I'm working with two of the best safety advisors I've ever had right now, which is a great place to be.
Yeah.
But he's a police officer.
Yeah.
So I sit there and go, we don't want cop safety. He's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things. In old days, you saw it a lot more, just compliance officers. And there's been a huge boost in academic research and professional thinking about safety methodologies, like what actually works. And the way new safety people are trained these days, a million miles away from the way that it used to be, which is great. There's a much better focus on collaborative safety and the why, which is really, really good. There's this notion that everyone's been jumped in, find your why, which I love. I've seen it done really, really well. What I'm trying to introduce with my guys is the why is a really, really powerful tool. Once you've got a person's why, you need to make a strong connection to the what you want them to do. And the way I've seen it go really badly is I say, hey, your eyes, they're important to you, right? Like, yeah, absolutely. Think of all the things you like to see, your kids and whatnot. Sell the why. My why for keeping my eyes safe is all this. And go, good. Make sure you're wearing your safety glasses at all times, everywhere outdoors. And okay, why? Because, a bird could fly into them or something. Your safety glasses will protect you. No, I think that's a stretch. And you do have to sell them that the thing that's their why isn't any danger.
Yeah.
And if you make just these nonsense safety things and try to loosely connect it to people's whys, okay, look, you sold me on the I want to be safe, but I kind of think I am. And I kind of think what you're saying is sort of nonsense.
Yeah, and depending upon the age demographic will be a different thing. A male in his early 20s is you're going to have a different...
But they're bulletproof, mate. Don't worry about it. They bounce. Yeah. They're absolutely fine.
Yeah, nothing's going to happen to me.
Exactly. Yeah. You're immortal for a few good years yet.
The other interesting thing too, mate, is the environment and the power balance has just changed. So, let's, say 20, 30 years ago, whatever, right? Is that the boss, the employer, had the vast majority of power.
Yep.
Easier to get rid of someone. Let's put it that way, right? Compared to now, it's not so easy.
No.
You know, that level one of leadership of being able, you know, you're doing, you know, what I ask because of my title, you know, what's the name and position on the door, right?
Yep.
It doesn't hold as much water anymore. So you don't really have any other options if you want to get positive outcomes.
It's a really fun one, and I've played this with my teams before. And what I'll do is I'll sort of demonstrate walking into a group. And what I used to do as a regional safety manager is I'd just go to a different village every week, basically. Almost always, I'm talking to teams I've never met before. Often, I wouldn't introduce myself by title, introduce myself by name.
Yeah.
And I'd just demonstrate to show the village managers, you know, moving away from the autocratic. It's like, they don't know me. I'm nothing to them. I'm just a guy. I'm wearing a white, yellow shirt like everybody else. I'm going to go in and take control. I'm going to go in, I'm going to run some safety conversations, take control of this group. I'm going to have everybody respecting me as a source of information and knowledge. And I'm going to do it in the next 5 minutes. And I'll go and I'll do it. And it really is just as simple as asserting yourself as a person who's got a good understanding, who's going to open a dialogue, going to make people in the conversation feel good about themselves, going to support collaboration. And all of a sudden, you've got everybody sort of talking. I'm leading the conversation, but we've got a group situation going here. And it is kind of a like, see, you can 100% do this. I didn't need any company hierarchy. No one needed to give me a job title. I didn't need to get introduced as a manager or anything else like that.
Yeah.
All you need to do is go in with the right attitude and the right skill set. And then you can achieve what you need to achieve as a leader. And if you're leaning on hierarchical authority as the thing that lets you do the job you're doing, then I might as well make any frontliner the boss, because that frontliner has the same skill sets that you do, which is to say none. You know, your job is your title. I could give that title to anybody.
Correct, yeah.
You're not bringing anything to the table, mate. So like, tell me what else that you're doing in addition to being the boss. And yeah, it is harder to just get rid of the people. It's harder to just take control, but it's driven people into realizing that they need to invest more in their people. When I can't just get rid of you because you missed a few days, now I have to spend a moment thinking about why you're missing days. Then I spend a moment thinking about why I've got a bit of a tardiness problem across my whole team. I actually need to think about my problems and then solve them. I got to develop some skills. That's only good for business, because if you've got leaders who can actually solve problems, they're going to solve all the problems you want them to solve too.
Yeah. And it's just getting over that, you know, boundary of it's inefficient to do that. It's like, we pay someone to do this, they should do this.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's, see how that goes.
It does sound like that. And I was watching a little bit of some of your previous work, and you made the point that, hey, it would be great if people were the sort of thing where you can give them an instruction once and they follow it forever until you give them a different instruction. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bad deal. We have to deal with these messy humans.
Yeah, that's right. And we get surprised. I think the comment was there. We get surprised that we've got to follow up. We've got to go.
We genuinely get amazed that, I have to tell you something more than once. And you go ahead and say, well, if my instructions aren't working, this is the piece. And this is the principle behind the 5 Whys methodology and how we investigate things now. So you're a guy working in a field and you make a decision. It's a bad decision. You get hurt. And so I go ahead and say, you made a bad decision, so you're fired. Great. Old school. It's working, right? We got rid of the problem. And this is the old workers are the cause of accidents, workers are the problem mentality from like the 1930s onwards.
Yep.
And then I hire another guy. He's in the same environment. Now, what I didn't know is the reason why you made that mistake is because that was actually the most common sense thing for you to do right then, because there's something wrong with your environment. So the next guy makes the same mistake. And I'm like, oh my God, everybody's an idiot. I'm going to fire him too. And then I do.
Why is this so hard? Yeah.
And then a few months later, and that's what the old school type of managers did. You go ahead and say, what I want, I said to my group of supervisors in the training, what I want is to fire and hire and fire and hire and fire and hire until I got a team of superstars. If you're not a superstar, you're fired until I get one who is. Where do you think those superstars came from? They came from leaders who were better than you, who knew how to train a team. So what are you admitting about yourself? That you're going to let better people than you actually make a team, and you're going to hope you get this, leavings?
Yeah.
It's kind of a pathetic position to take as a leader, but a lot of people see it as a thing of power. Like, I haven't got that. No, you don't, man. You're just letting everybody know you got no idea what you're doing, and you're hoping to get people who do so they can cover up for you. Yeah. It's a very, very soft place to be in.
A confronting situation to, come to that realization, isn't it?
It was I put it softer and over a bit more minutes for the team. But there were a few people there who had some unfortunate realizations about themselves.
And look, it's it's not about pointing fingers or anything like that, but it's just they've learned a particular process from other people. There's gone, and I can't remember where we spoke about it already or whether it was prior to us starting, but just that situation where leaders are proficient at the tasks that they're performing. They're a reliable and trustworthy person, and then they get thrown into a higher position that are responsible for others. Normally no support, normally no, training and different things like that. And they've got to figure it out as they go. And, we spoke about,
exactly
how you figure that out is that, over a 5, 10, 15-year period, and you continue, is how can I do this and what works and what doesn't work, right? And that has a higher attrition rate compared to someone who's going to be invested in and supported and given a positive
so
positive
much
role
faster and
model.
easier just to train your people.
Yeah.
And again, when I say to my more senior guys, this rules apply for you as well. If you make a bad call, if your team's not really working, if stuff's going wrong, and we look at it and go, we're just going to fire you and get another leader, another supervisor, or we go ahead and say, hey, did anybody even show you how to do any of this stuff? Can we just teach you and then and then we get to keep you with all of your subject matter experience, all of your time on this job, all your specialist knowledge, and you've got this skill set that's going to help you avoid these issues in the future.
Yeah.
And for people who want to take up on that, that's how some of my best leaders have come from. People who just were struggling.
Yeah. Well, it's one of the things that drove me to do what I'm doing, and working with different businesses, is that it's normally leaders who have had good exposure to things that have worked or figured it out themselves that are investing time in other leaders. Again, like your scenario, it's not necessarily your job. It's not necessarily fair. And you don't normally have the time, because the time is a big factor. I've got all these other things that got to happen right now. Yeah, it'd be great if I can, invest some time in some leaders. Where the hell am I going to pull this time from?
Exactly.
It's not physically possible. I can't do this, right? And that's going to be, dependent on particular organizations and their resource structures and so forth, and how much fat and time there's allowed in for that. But, it's a tough situation to be in, and again, it falls back to leaders. There
might be a situation we find in the future with the way that things are going, where we've got the plurality of leaders have a lot of these skills that we're talking about, and it's going to be very, very rewarding for those of us sort of who've been sitting through the last 20 or 30 years trying to upskill as many people as you can, having learnt this the hard way. It's the same as with kids. What you want for the next generation is to have an easier time than you did. The dream for new managers and leaders coming through is they get a lot of this stuff just given to them, so they don't need to spend a decade trial and erroring their way through some system that works for them.
That's part of the process, isn't it?
There is a really, really good lesson from psychology that I always bring up when we're talking about culture, and it is a fun story. So why I learned it when I was a kid studying psychology in uni is they had a pen filled with monkeys, because they did lots of research on monkeys before there was ethics boards and lots of nasty stuff. And this is one of those slightly less ethical experiments. So what they did is they had this big wooden post, easily climbable for your average monkey, and they had a basket of fresh fruit on the top. And the last couple feet of it were metal copper strips. And what would happen is the monkey would climb up, and as it sort of got to the top, it would get an electric shock and sort of get blasted off. Very funny, kind of cruel. Again, nobody thought psychologists could get into trouble in these days, so there was no ethics committees.
Yeah.
What would happen is all the monkeys would climb up and they would get blasted, and they would just stop going up there because you can't get the fruit, don't bother. What was interesting is that if you took a monkey out and put a new monkey in, the first thing that new monkey would do is it would try to climb for it. But monkeys, being social animals and largely not dickheads, would stop that other monkey and just be like, every time he tries to climb it, the rest would gang up on him and basically tackle him to the ground, like, you're not doing this, until this monkey learned, you just don't go up there, mate. That's just not something that's done. So over the course of a while, you take out a monkey and you bring a new monkey, and you take out a monkey, bring a new monkey, and you will get to the point where you've got 20 monkeys in that pen. Not a single one of them will go up the post. They'll stop new monkeys from going up the post. None of them have ever been shocked. None of them know why you don't go up the post. It's just how we do things around here. So what I talk about when we're trying to build safety systems or leadership systems or team culture is this concept of cultural inertia. Once you've got a large enough group of core employees or people or whoever who are like, this is just how it is done, they will take new people and they will stop them from shocking themselves. And those new people don't need to learn the same lessons the same way. But if you tried to do it with only like some of the monkeys have been shocked and the rest of them are still kind of doing whatever, you're never going to build it. And it's a big problem with things like turnover. But that focus on, once you have managed to build enough of a core in your team that you can build up your cultural inertia and it will drive itself, then that culture will self-regulate and sort of inoculate itself against organizational drift really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's a really good, what's my first step in changing culture? Like, what's my short-term target? And your short-term target is that little core group. Like, figure out who's those people who've been hanging on for a while, will continue to hang on, are interested in talking to new people and what have you. Work on them, build them up. They're your succession planners. They're your core cultural group. They're your drivers. And you just think about the monkeys in the pen. And it works really well. It's a great way of talking to people how you take this massive job of changing a complete company's organizational culture and go, no, bite-size it. Figure out where your pens are.
Break it down.
Figure out what your things are you don't want people to get shocked by, and figure out how you're going to create a cultural inertia, and then realize that once you've got that inertia, it's a boulder rolling downhill. Like, you don't need to do anything new with those monkeys you're introduced. The team will take care of it. And that's where you want to be. Your team's going to take care of your culture once you've done the hard yards.
Yeah. Yeah, and a great spot to be, and very rewarding spot to be in, isn't it?
So kick your feet up on the desk, mate. Because that's the time when, and you know, people say it, that's when you get yourself in a position where you can work on the company, not work in the company. And if you want leaders who can actually spend their time going, well, actually, how do I get the most out of this contract? How do I sort of find a bit of extra profit in my offering to the client here? Like, this village is huge. There's so much stuff we can do. How do I build the company from where I am? Most village managers in most places in Western Australia are not thinking like that ever. All they're doing is responding to, how do I keep everything afloat another week? Like, how do I make sure staff are coming in? How do I respond to the latest crisis? You've got so few people in those critical positions working on the companies they're in. And a lot of village services are really struggling with that now. And that's the big problem they're trying to solve, is how do we get our village managers to actually do good stuff with the contract to make some profit here? The answer is teach them how to change a culture.
Well, you got to invest some time somehow, right? Like, you've got to turn that doom loop around. Yeah,
that's exactly it.
No, it's a tough road, that's for sure. Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you.
Oh, it's been fantastic.
Mate, I love it, and really appreciative too, mate. I know you're back up to site tomorrow morning early, and to take you away from your two young kids and your wife on your last afternoon before you go is I really appreciate that, mate. And
or as well.
I think, you know, all the stuff that you spoke about is exactly what we're about in regards just to passing some stuff on, and you know, particularly communicating to people that are going through similar culture changes and things like that. And you know, it's it's not a unusual thing. It's very, very relevant and common. And I really like some of your thoughts on that. That's
thanks,
great.
I appreciate it. This has been fantastic fun. And I was hope I can stand up to some of your other material. This is absolutely great podcast you've been putting together.
Oh, mate, I appreciate that. Yeah, no, it's no, you certainly will. Looking forward to getting it out in the next couple of days. So
awesome.
No,
sensational.
Pleasure. Thank you, mate.
Thank you.